The United States and Russia are still talking about a peace deal with Ukraine. But Russian President Vladimir Putin has put a dent in those negotiations, claiming Ukraine launched drones at one of his residences. The Kremlin says it will respond. Here's how Donald Trump responded to Putin's claim, followed by a report from journalist Ross Cullen.
It's one thing to be offensive, because they're offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it.
Well, the Ukrainian president denied that Ukrainian armed forces attacked the home in the Novgorod region of Russia of the Russian President Vladimir Putin. But Moscow's foreign minister says that is exactly what did happen. All incoming Ukrainian drones were shot down, but as a result, the Kremlin's negotiating position will now change, and that targets have been selected inside Ukraine for retaliatory strikes, possibly including government buildings, according to the Ukrainian presidency. Now, the President Volodymyr Zelenskyy saying on Monday that these claims by Russia are fabricated, and they are just another example of lies that Moscow is telling to try to influence the peace process and to try to influence the thinking of the United States. Volodymyr Zelenskyy was in the US on Sunday for face-to-face talks with President Donald Trump about the peace negotiations, about the US-Ukrainian 20-point peace plan. Also on Monday here in France, the President Emmanuel Macron saying that there would be another meeting of the Coalition of the Willing. This is a group of some 30 or so of Ukraine's Western allies, comprising all the major European nations like the UK, France and Germany, and also countries like Canada. That summit to be held here in Paris early next month, with a focus on security guarantees, possibly including the much discussed idea of boots on the ground, a reassurance force of Western troops inside Ukraine after any peace accord is signed by Kiev and Moscow. But certainly, looking at the assessment of Donald Trump on Sunday, he said that all the sides in his assessment had never been this close to an end to the war, bringing forward the hope that this conflict could come to a close in 2026. Ross Cullen for CBC News, Paris.
For some more analysis, we're now joined by Michael Bosserque. He is a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and the founder of the World Briefing Report on Substack. Michael, thanks for being here. First off, President Trump said a peace plan was, quote, closer than ever before. Do you see the possibility of any kind of deal?
Good to be with you, Dan. Well, I hope so, because the longer this war drags on, of course, the more opportunity it gives to Mr. Putin to manipulate the process and pummel Ukrainian cities. I think what we heard from Mr. Trump was very, very positive, especially when it comes to security guarantees. Now, they didn't go for the 50 years that Ukraine was asking for. That's a bit of a stretch, but they did apparently agree to 15 years. But having said that, can Mr. Trump be trusted to honor those security guarantees or a future U.S. administration?
Do you think the length of a security guarantee matters at this point, given the tension from both sides?
What matters most is the essence of the security guarantees. Who actually backs it? Who is prepared to put boots on the ground? And Ukrainians are very skeptical of U.S. promises right now, very deservedly skeptical, because it's being ripped off a couple of decades ago with the Budapest Memorandum, and the U.S. was a signatory there. So this makes Ukrainians very nervous if Mr. Zelenskyy not only agrees to a security guarantee, but also territorial concessions, which could put overnight 150,000 or more Ukrainians under Russian occupation, possibly. So a lot of problems here that could potentially spiral into big ones.
Is it possible that a territorial exchange may be, at least according to some, the only way that fighting stops, regardless of whether or not President Zelenskyy does not want to agree to that?
Well, if you had asked me that yesterday, I would have probably said yes, kind of, sort of. But after what transpired today, with Mr. Trump's phone call with Mr. Putin is acting vintage Putin, launching a PSYOPs operation on Mr. Trump telling him that the Ukrainians tried to target his home. And, he has some kind of trance over the American leader. On one day, Mr. Trump is very friendly to the Ukrainians and Mr. Zelenskyy. On the next day, he sways towards Mr. Putin. And that, of course, does not work in Ukraine's favor.
Regardless of the fact that, as we heard, President Putin said one of his residences claimed to have been targeted by Ukraine, and yet Russia just coming off a massive strike against Kyiv. I think you have a lot of people around the world saying those certainly not comparable.
Yeah, what a joke. I mean, this is what you call a false flag operation. And my goodness, you would think that the U.S. would have the technology to verify whether Ukraine actually launched this alleged attack. But yeah, you're right. And I fear, I'm headed back to Ukraine in a couple of days. That's my base now. And I fear that Russia will launch very, very heavy strikes as a pretext. Government buildings in Kyiv, probably the world port Odessa, probably nothing is off the table. So we're headed into a very dangerous time in Ukraine, and that's on top of all the power losses, water losses, no heating during a very cold time of the year.
Michael, amid all that, do you see any reason for optimism 3 months, 6 months into the new year?
The optimism I express is based on what I see among Ukrainians day after day after day. I mean, they're still going on, operating the economy. They're fighting very, very hard. The key thing right now, Dan, will be for Ukraine to hold on to those 3 or 4 so-called fortress cities, including Kramatorsk. The Russians are getting closer. Should they take those very heavily fortified cities, it could be a clean sweep for them across the Dnieper River towards Kyiv. But again, Ukrainians' optimism, of course, like any group of people who are strong, has its limits. And what they really, really need right now is everything they're asking for in terms of weaponry and financial assistance. Because one last point here, if the West does not help Ukraine push Mr. Putin back, sooner or later, probably sooner, his hybrid warfare, and perhaps worse, will be on their doorstep. And Canadians need to appreciate that as well.
Michael Bosserque, a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and the founder of the World Briefing Report on Substack. We very much appreciate your time and analysis. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.